What do you do when your life falls apart? I've been there. I remember when I was walking through separation and a divorce of a marriage that I had for a long time. It felt like the end of everything. But in the midst of that pain, there was something that happened, a question that I got asked that just changed everything. And here's the thing, life can be tough sometimes, but the way we respond to tough times, if we don't handle them well, we can end up suffering for years, even decades later, that can just destroy our heart. And I don't want that for you. So I'm going to just show you how to find hope in your darkest moment. Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Derek and this is A Little Nudge. And for the last 3 decades, I've been helping people deepen and explore faith. And in these videos, I'm just giving you nudges and tools and insights that might help you hopefully live a deeper and a more meaningful life. So I'm walking out into this beautiful countryside near where I live. The sky is so beautiful and blue. And there's just the trees and the birds, it's so peaceful. But actually, I don't see any of that because there's just darkness inside me. I'm just thinking about the mess my life is in. I've been married for 22 years and I had 2 amazing kids, but everything had just fallen apart. I was heading straight into a divorce. And as I walked, I could feel the pain so strong and sharp that actually I put my hand to my chest. It felt like there was a knife stabbing straight in there. And in that moment, I heard this voice, not like an audible voice, but definitely a voice that wasn't mine. And I've never really heard God speak in an audible voice, but this is probably the closest. And this is the voice that just cut through everything, that asked me this question. It was like, how are you going to walk through this, Derek? Given what is in front of you, just this pile of mess, just the worst mess that I've ever experienced, how are you going to walk through it? Like, you can't walk around it, and you can't just stand still and not head into it. You can't just press pause in your life. So given that you inevitably are going to go through this pile of just junk, how are you going to go through it? And normally I'm quite a methodical thinker. I take a long time to think things through, analyze it from every angle. But in that moment, just this snap, instant decision got made in my heart. I just felt this reaction just leap up as if from nowhere in answer to this question. How am I going to walk through it? I was like, actually, I'm going to walk through it so that I come out the other end better and not bitter. I'm going to come through this, and instead of destroying my life, it's going to give me life. And like, that made no sense in the moment. There was no kind of rationalness to it because my life had just been destroyed. Everything I was working towards just felt like it had gone through this dark season that I was walking through. But I was like just determined that when I was going to come out the end of this, through the divorce, through the separation, that actually I wasn't going to carry bitterness with me, that the pain was bad enough for itself without years and decades of having bitterness and hatred and guilt and shame and all that sort of stuff. And so I'm going to come out better rather than bitter. And that wasn't like easy. I knew that that would mean forgiveness. That meant that I need to go to counselling to work through some stuff. That meant that through the whole separation and divorce that I needed to keep putting my kids first. And as great as the temptation is to use them to get back at the person or whatever, that I just, no matter what it cost me, that I needed just to put them first in what I said and what I shared and different things that might have happened. And it was because I believed that my life wasn't over. It felt over, but I trusted with God that it wasn't over, that He had new things for me to do and new things for me to learn, that actually beyond the darkness where I couldn't see, that there was light and that there was God's presence and God's leading. And as I leaned into that decision, and I thought about that decision often, like, how am I going to walk through this? And I found that answering that question with I want to be better, not bitter, actually rescued me from years and decades of darkness. And actually, I was able to walk through it, come out the other side, and experience a sense of joy and a sense of peace and a sense of light. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, and I don't want to belittle the pain or minimize what I went through. And actually, if you're struggling in your marriage or facing divorce like just now, my advice would always be do everything you can to rescue your marriage, because divorce and separation is just horrendous. But there is an interesting thing that in our darkest moments, we can still find hope. And the brother of Jesus, a guy called James, he wrote this really interesting letter. And it begins with, very the beginning of this letter that he wrote in the first century, there's a really odd verse. But hey, James is the brother of Jesus. He grew up with Jesus. He saw Jesus and played around with him. So I'm interested in what he's got to say. And right at the beginning, James 1, verse 2, he says this. He said, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity. When troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity. And I wonder how you'd fill the blank in if you were writing that later. Consider it an opportunity for misery. Consider it an opportunity to complain a bit more. Consider it an opportunity for sorrow. But he finishes it in the oddest way. And he says, when troubles of any time come, I want you to consider it an opportunity for great joy. And it's like, what? He says it's an opportunity for great joy. It's a chance for your character to go and grow. And then he even goes on to say it's a chance for you to become perfect, for you to become complete and whole, which is often like what any of us want. And we see trouble, and actually what we want to do is we want to minimize it. We want to get through it. We want to get out of it. We want to avoid it. We want to spend as little time as possible. We want to do everything we can. But James says it's an opportunity for great joy. And that's because the way that the James saw the world is like the opposite to how many of us see the world. We tend to go through the world with a very simple framework where we want to maximize pleasure and we want to minimize pain. We want to maximize convenience and what feels good. We want to minimize pain and difficulties. We want to avoid it. You know, we even like get frustrated. So I shop online, and there's a company I use to buy all my stuff. And often I just go to the same company to buy online. And do you know why? It's because they've already got my details, my bank details. It means I can just click and I don't have to put them in again. It's just so convenient and easy. That's ridiculous, isn't it? But companies lean on that for us because they know we just want to avoid difficulties of any kind. And so when we hit an obstacle that causes us problems, then that reduces our pleasure and increases our pain. So for us, that's not good. That's really bad. But for James, he had a completely different view of life. And for him, life wasn't about just feeling good and avoiding feeling bad. He had this deeper purpose, a deeper understanding of why we were created. And for him, it was about our character. It was about who we were. That mattered much more than having an easy life. And so that's why he said it's an opportunity for joy, because when you go through difficulties, that's when your character can grow. If you want to grow into being a mature, a whole, a complete person, then actually suffering and difficulties is how you get there. So when you face them, then that's kind of a good opportunity, isn't it? Kind of makes sense intellectually, but it's a bit of a struggle, isn't it? But here's the interesting thing. This is the twist in the tale. And before I tell you that, if you're enjoying the video, then please subscribe to my channel. Please comment on this video. Tell me what you think, and I'd love to respond to that. So here's the twist in the tale. We look at James and think he's a weird guy. He's looking at troubles and difficulties and think, hey, that's an opportunity for joy. And we're like, no, it's not. We just want less pain and we want more pleasure, more good things in our lives. But at a deep level, when you get rid of all the triviality and the superficial stuff at the top of mind, at a deep level, actually, you agree with James. And I can prove it to you that actually you agree with James in your soul. And here's my proof for it. When you go to a funeral, I don't know, think about the last funeral that you went to. I hope that's not too upsetting to think about, or you imagine your own funeral, or imagine that you've got to speak at the funeral of somebody you know. What do you talk about? Or when you're sitting in your funeral and you're thinking about the person who you've lost, what comes to mind? And I bet it's not how many Netflix they watched. I bet it's not how many takeaways they had. I bet it's not any of those things. I bet the thing that you think about is their character. I bet the person who stands up, the only thing they talk about is their character. They talk about what sort of person they were. Because here's the thing, in the face of death and loss, that strips away the nonsense, isn't it? We spend our time and attention on so much nonsense. We get obsessed by, trying to reduce pain and maximizing pleasure. We want convenience. I want to click online so I don't have to waste a few seconds putting in my bank details. We get obsessed with all that sort of stuff. But when in the face of death, actually, it strips all that away and we're left with what really matters. If I'm really honest, at my funeral, I don't really want you to talk about what clothes I wear or how much stuff I've got or how much I watched or whatever. Actually, I'd love for the people who know me to talk about my character and to talk about the sort of person that I am. Because ultimately, that's like what we want, what we were created for. We were made to be like Jesus. And for James, his life purpose was to become more like Jesus. For those who are Christians, I mean, that word means little Christ. It means someone who wants to pattern their life after Jesus. The thing that's going to help you to do that, it's an opportunity when you walk through suffering. That doesn't mean we go out and we seek suffering. Suffering will find us. We don't need to do anything about that. But it does mean when it comes, it's an opportunity to ask ourselves that question. How am I going to walk through this? Am I going to walk through this and become better, or am I going to become bitter through it? You're not left the same out the other end of your darkest moments, but actually nobody becomes great except through walking through suffering the right way. And I know that it's not always easy when we face pain and we maybe face regrets. And if you've got particular memories of difficulties that you went through in the past, then you might want to watch this video where I talk about really being haunted by how I got treated by a colleague and how I found healing through that. And you may find that video really helpful if you're struggling with regret and pain in your life right now. But I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.